it's time for your questions now, so if anybody has a question, feel free. So the question is, what is your take on Square?
I think Square was an excellent way of helping small merchants be able to accept credit cards.
Square is not a payment company, it's a small business CRM company. And that's what they do, and that's what they do best.
It's innovation in new ways, for payment. I find them to be a really interesting, play in the payment space.
Yeah, again, nothing too special. We're seeing a lot more products that do the same thing come into the market now that don't have the brand identity of Square. It obviously utilizes a mobile platform, which is good for us, I guess. But other than that, that's fine.
Let me add one more thing. I think it is special, so I'll counter what Raphael said. I think it is special because it allowed payment acceptance for more merchants than you can ever dream, because there are 30 million merchants in the US who are cursed to a life of cash, and they opened up payment acceptance to them. So it's a huge thing. And they also did something else. They made sure that you didn't have to change your behavior. You were still paying by plastic. The merchants now are able to accept that plastic, and that's the difference that they made.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't become something that didn't exist. They went after a market that wasn't being served.
Basically talking about, with EMV, it's a physical world deal. All the fraud is shifting online, so is it really that important?
Okay, let's be... I have an ownership of EMV.
You've just insulted.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
You're speaking to the creator here.
Yeah. So first off, it's 20 years old.
Yeah. The one it's replacing is 40 years old.
Right. The technology that you're talking about, smart cards, I totally agree. 1976 first patent, 1978 first implementation, 1984 first implementation in banking systems. EMV is 20 years old. The technology we're using for EMV is exactly the same technology that the US government selected not so long ago as the means of protection of our national assets. You need a smart card to enter into a nuclear facility. Same technology. You asked the real question, which is card not present versus card present. EMV was absolutely designed for a card present world. EMV could very easily be embraced, and at one point, if you remember back to the Amex Blue Card, they absolutely embraced it for card not present. The problem? Who's going to pay for the smart card reader that I got to plug into the device? Mobile phone, no problem. Secure element, it's there. We can make that happen. Same thing probably with the tablet. It's the PC. Problem is, we can't find a solution for security in the card not present world. And we had this debate earlier. 3D secure or verified by Visa secure code. We tried. It required the consumer to do something. CVV2, that value on the back of the mag stripe. We tried. The consumer had to do something. Address verification. We tried. The consumer had to do something. When we find that ubiquitous, doesn't require any additional effort on the part of the consumer, then we can deal with card not present. The reality, though, is that card present still is 85% of commerce. And we do need to protect that, and simultaneously, we need to find a solution for card not present. And do we, the United States, want to stand out and do something totally different? When we, the United States, voted yes in 1994, when the payment schemes decided we needed a globally interoperable solution. And that's what it was. A globally interoperable solution.
And one thing on the evolution of this, and I pretty much support what they're saying about this, is that there is a new standard underway right now to develop a tokenization standard by the networks and other players that could potentially be the next generation of security, and that's a pretty big deal. So the question is there a sophisticated Bitcoin scenario in our future?
We tried one called Mondex. We tried one called Visa Cash here in Atlanta at the Olympics. Ubiquity was the challenge. Until you can get acceptance, I mean, Thad put it perfectly. Until you can get acceptance at the merchant level, until the consumer sees a mechanism that requires no additional friction, then we'll get it. Bitcoin, is every merchant going to accept it?
But it's the best way to get money out of a revolutionary country I've ever seen.
I think one of the biggest, what I saw, one of the biggest impacts of Bitcoin was this was a few weeks ago, there was a transaction, a Bitcoin transaction, that the total value of that was about $147 million, and it went from one address to another. To move that kind of money in today's banking system, just imagine how much it would have cost someone.
$40.
Not exactly. It would cost a lot more in terms of risk and everything.
How much? Risk.
Yeah, so it would, try imagining wiring that much money from one country to another. Cross-border payments is a I don't want to use any bad language, but it's really messed up. That particular Bitcoin transaction was a fraction of the cost. I think it was less than $10, was to move $147 million, across the globe. Banks have to look at that and say, if this is really how money will be moved in the future, what's going to happen to the revenue that they make through cross-border payments? So math-based currencies have huge impact, not in any way envisioned today. There's a trickle-down effect. There's going to be more things being done because of that. As Sean mentioned, the protocol ultimately has more value than the money itself.
The question is, what about host card emulation and tokenization? Are they going to be big deals this year? I'm going to let Philip explain host card emulation because he's much more familiar with it than I am, but it's a recent announcement that just came up in the last few months from Google. So go ahead, Philip.
Okay, so host card emulation starts out as a protocol that was developed on a BlackBerry machine and was subsequently implemented in version 4.4 of Android, commonly called KitKat. What host card emulation does is it emulates a smart card and the 7816 protocol that defines how a smart card communicates with a terminal, and the 14443 standards that are employed for contactless or NFC communication. So basically what we're doing is we're taking what we expected to store in the secure element and allowing it to be stored in insecure memory. On top of host card emulation, we've got something called SE in the cloud, or secure element in the cloud. And the concept, if we think about what Google has done, is they've used host card emulation, and they're using that to communicate with the cloud where the credentials, the EMV secret stuff, is going to be stored. So that the work gets done in the cloud, gets passed to the mobile device, gets passed to the terminal, gets added to the payment transaction. It is, bottom line, disruptive. I actually spent, I think, about 3 hours yesterday talking about how do we implement, because Oberthur's looking at how do we implement host card emulation. And there are some really easy and sexy ways of doing it until somebody says latency. And then you sit there and wonder, okay, if the spec for transit is 250 milliseconds, how do I address latency? And we're already struggling with an SE in the phone. Second thing is coverage. You show me an AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, O2, etc. network that guarantees 100% coverage everywhere that I want to go. And I keep reminding people there's an hour-and-a-half drive between here and Greenwood, South Carolina, after I go up Highway 72, up near Lake Russell, where there is no coverage. And there's a great fish and tackle shop up there and a superb restaurant, and I won't be able to use my NFC token. If we had 100% online, it would absolutely work, but it is disruptive. What Visa, MasterCard have to say is the open question.
Yeah, so I think with HCE, absolutely agree, 100%. For us as a mobile operator organisation, this was incredibly disruptive to us as well. Our implementation has been focusing on a piece of hardware, so go a little bit deeper. When your phone, the NFC controller, speaks to a point-of-sale terminal, it can only directly communicate with a piece of hardware on your handset. Now it can communicate with software, be it wherever it is, memory on the phone, in the cloud, wherever it wants to be. And agree, I'm in a hotel in the middle of Atlanta and I don't have 4G service right now. This easily could be a shopping mall and I couldn't be able to pay for anything. That's huge. Underground in a metro station, trying to get through gates to get onto a train. That's huge. You won't be able to use it. So just coverage there is, big deal. Security is a huge deal. Right now the payment rules require that one of the main mechanisms to complete a payment is stored on hardware. If that's changed to then be allowed to be stored in software on a phone or on any sort of computing element, that's going to be a big game changer for payments as well. So we're seeing this, and it's going to turn from a field where only a few teams could play in a conference or a division or a game, where now anyone can play in it and do whatever they want to do. And that's going to be, for the consumer, it's going to be very scary. And for other companies who are trying to develop this service, put it in the market that focuses on a trust model, that's going to be really scary too, because that trust model is going to fall down.
So going back to, when we first started this evening, is 2014 the year of payments? First off, great questions from the audience. But I think they point out, I said 2014 is going to be a year of growth in mobile payments, but I don't know if it's the killer year. And I think all the questions and all the answers point out why. I mean, how do you future-proof yourself and know which standard, which technology, which payment is going to be broadly adopted? So great questions and a lot of fragmentation and what's going to happen in the market. So great growth this year, but all these questions I think highlight why 14 will grow, but it won't be the big year.
And with that, I think that's about as good a summary of our conversation that we can have. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, panel.